Give me, let me just turn this off. Okay. I want to welcome everyone to the Portland Centennial celebration. And I would like to introduce Jenny Shen, who is the Portland Lodge Board Secretary, who will be giving this presentation. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jenny.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone has had a great convention so far. My name is Jenny Shen, the Portland Secretary. And thank you for joining us today in celebration of CACA Portland Lodge's Centennial celebration. It is with pleasure that I am sharing with you all 100 years of history at the Portland Lodge. But first, I would like to introduce everyone to the 2021 Portland Lodge Board. And as you can see from the picture on the right, from up top, left to right, we have Betty Jean Lee, our Director at Large, Franklin Tran, our Compliance Officer, Kent Lee, our current President, Helen Ying, the Director at Large, Stephen Ying, the National Representative, and on the bottom of the screen, from left to right, we have Gloria Lee, our Marshal, Wisdom Ming, our Treasurer, Kitty Kong, Vice President, Raymond Chong, the Sentinel, and then myself as the Board Secretary. And since the 1990s, the CACA Portland Lodge's mission has been threefold, which is to develop leadership, serve the community, and promote civil rights. And at this time, I would also like to give a huge shout out and thank you to our Portland Lodge members for their continual dedication and support in helping to serve our community and programs. Pictured here is one of many members, families, friends that celebrated with us for our 100th anniversary Chinese New Year celebration early in February of this year. And also, before we begin, I would also like to thank National Historian Sue Ellen Chen and past National President Mong Sun Kwok for their contribution in helping to complete the Portland Lodge story for the first 100 years. The founding of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance Portland Lodge dates back to February 24th, 1921. Some months before, the Portland group received sanction from the Grand Lodge to charter Portland Lodge. Li Hing, the charter president, reported that the committee had signed up to 60 paid qualified members, all of whom were American citizens, as was required. But as it turned out that night, the Portland Oregonian actually reported a charter membership as great as 150. Among attendants were local District Attorney Evans and Mayor Baker of Portland, who spoke at the open house of the new headquarters near Chinatown. Chartering and installing officer was Grand President Leung Kao from San Francisco. Some notable charter leaders included Li Qing, the charter president, and Wu Lai Sung, who was the first English secretary noted as the first Chinese American graduate from University of Oregon in civil engineering in 1914. He was also the son of the notable Lai Sung family of Salem, who were prominent hop farmers. He would be important later in Grand Lodge activities. Li Hing, who was the charter president, also served several terms later and was also a descendant of families successful in hops farming and also in businesses. Ding Gao, the charter assistant Chinese secretary, would serve in many positions. He would later be grand representative for Portland Lodge for nearly 30 years, past 1953. And as seen from this Grand Lodge report, you can see on the picture on the right, Ding Gao is listed as a grand representative for Portland Lodge. Portland Lodge was immediately active in the local community and with the national mission of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. By March, the Portland Lodge teamed with community groups for China relief alongside prominent lawyer Seed Gang Back from Portland, who was a member of the board of directors. And just 6 months after chartering, Portland Lodge was immediately immersed in the headquarters building project in San Francisco that was launched on August 10th of 1921. And based on record, the lodge was noted to have raised $200, which is equivalent to $2,500 in 2021. And that same weekend, 3 delegates attended the 8th Biannual National Convention in Oakland. And by 1923 in San Francisco, Charter President Li Qing was sitting on the Grand Board. It has been noticed that the Chinese American Citizens Alliance membership comprises much as 10% of all eligible Chinese men in the United States, which is an astonishing number. And one can surmise that the popularity was due to 2 important factors: the attractiveness of a death benefit insurance program and the reassurance of an unofficial certification of citizenship, which could be issued. And at the time, racial discrimination had prevented Chinese from obtaining any insurance. And this certification seemed reliable despite Immigration Department's insistence that the certificates had no legal basis. During that period, 60% of our lodge members were employed in the salmon canneries, and this was a strong indication that the typical membership including working men, as well as businessmen and professionals. And perhaps one of the most important early involvement of Portland Lodge on the national stage was its participation in a campaign to obtain family reunification of wives from China with their native-born husbands here. This action became urgent when a majority of members expressed concerns on behalf of those who had traveled to China, married, had children, but then returned to the States. The Immigration Act of 1924, however, virtually shut down the hope of immigration for the non-citizen women. This resolve was translated into action at the 1925 National Convention in Chicago, and which formed a committee planned on financing a campaign to make the wives possible for citizenship. This would later lead to a whistle-stop campaign, which included Portland member Wu Lai Sung, alongside Alliance leaders such as Yu Chung Hong, Walter Yu Lum, Kenneth Y. Fung, Peter Wong, and Peter Su Hu Sr. And this advocacy, while it lasted 20 years, it did later on in August 1946, we did create the Wives of Chinese American Husbands Act, which was passed in Congress and signed by President Harry Truman to give non-quota status for the immigration of the woman. In 1933, Portland Lodge hosted a national convention for the first time, the 14th Biannual National Convention, during the term of Walter Yu Lum as Grand President. You can actually see a picture of that present here on the right. And among the issues discussed at the convention were the forming of women auxiliaries and the starting of an organizational history. Among those were also the family reunification program, bringing Chinese wives to the States. And while the following years was not easy for Portland Lodge in the times of the Great Depression and World War II, membership dwindled, and as it did in several lodges, and convention proceedings reported that Portland could not even qualify for any representation in 1937. But however, after World War II, the Portland Lodge revived and willingly offered to host its second national convention, the 22nd National Convention, which was held at the Hotel Monoma, and the closing ceremony at the Golden Dragon restaurant. Portland would later go on to host 3 more conventions: the 33rd National Convention in 1975, the 40th in 1989, and the 46th in 2001. And a major milestone took place at the 33rd National Convention when the Grand Council took action to admit women as bona fide members. And while the Portland Lodge was slated to host the 56th National Convention, the COVID-19 pandemic put an unprecedented spin on the situation. However, we are immensely grateful that we are able to still hold the convention in a virtual platform today. And here you can see a list of all the presidents that have served in the lodge. And as you can see, many of our current board members have actually served as presidents in the past. One of our most formidable and ongoing programs is our leadership and youth development programs. And first, starting with our youth basketball program. So the Portland Lodge Youth Basketball Program was initiated back in the 1950s by Fred G. Lee, and it continued to thrive under leadership of those that followed. It became a signature program for over 60 years. The program was an important service for the Chinese American community for decades, as many families had working parents, and the children often hung out at restaurants while parents had long hours at their businesses. And this program provided a stable activity connecting youths across the Pacific Northwest and Oregon, Washington, and Vancouver, BC. The program has served countless 4th to 12th graders across teams and coaches over the years. Some fun memories include tournaments with the Seattle Chinese Athletic Association. This program, however, was retired in 2017, but had an ongoing run for 60 years. Once the basketball program was established in the 1960s, there was a need for financial support. Many of the members helped by selling snacks at games, but it wasn't enough revenue. Therefore, the idea of gathering family recipes and developing a cookbook was established. And this cookbook was called Zhonghua Mei Wei. Families and friends gathered to send recipes and hand typed out the first cookbook, which sold 1,000 copies in the first week. Since then, there have been 6 printings, and the 7th printing is actually forthcoming and also actually available for purchase on our website at cacaportlandlaw.org. We hope this cookbook will be passed on to the next generation and to preserve our traditional food. Across leadership, we also have over 40 years of scholarship programs. At the Portland Lodge, we have 4 ongoing scholarships. The first one being the Fred G. Lee Memorial Scholarship. So Fred G. Lee was an active and notable leader in the CACA community with a passion in mentoring and helping youth. Not only did he start the basketball program in the late 1950s, but he was also on the Chinese school board. He mentored and advised many young people, often bringing them home for dinner. And according to Betty Jean, wanted to adopt a couple who were going through tough times because of the lack of parental support. Much of what he did was done quietly and without recognition. After his untimely death in 1979, the Chinese community decided to establish a scholarship to continue his commitment to young people. And with the hard work of fundraising, donations throughout the years, we were grateful to have provided 70 scholarships thus far. Another scholarship that we offer is the Paul Duan Memorial Scholarship. And this is part of our Asian American Youth Leadership Conference, which was organized in 1993 under the leadership of Mr. Paul Duan, while he was serving as the coordinator of the City of Portland's Refugee and Immigration Program. This scholarship was created after Mr. Paul Duan's passing in 2015, and also still is offered, continued today as part of the Asian American Youth Leadership Program. The next scholarship that we offer is the David Lee Tran Memorial Scholarship. Franklin and Sherry Tran established a scholarship in memory of their son, David Lee Tran. Their beautiful baby boy was born in 1979. He suffered oxygen deprivation at birth that resulted in severe brain damage. He could not walk or talk or take care of himself and suffered cerebral palsy his whole life. However, despite the challenges, he was always smiling, loving, and affectionate. He died in 2016 of complications of pneumonia at age 36. In honoring of their son, Franklin and Sherry hope this scholarship will inspire students going into the medical fields to help people like David and to someday find a cure for devastating brain damage. Our last scholarship is the Tiffany Wong Arts Scholarship. This scholarship is sponsored by Tiffany Wong, who was a gifted musician and had a great passion for music and the arts. Tiffany felt privileged that her parents could afford to send her to summer music camps, and she sponsored this scholarship with the funds that she earned from many performances to help students that are less fortunate. This scholarship continues to help students with their tuition fees for summer camps in the fine arts and performing arts. Alongside the National Annual Essay Contest, we also host the essay contest here. The Portland Lodge has been involved in the CACA National Essay Contest since its inception. And in 2020, we were fortunate to host 17 contestants as an in-person event just before a statewide COVID shutdown. And in 2021, we pivoted to holding the contest virtually for 14 contestants. And here are some of our essay contest winners in the past. As mentioned before, we have the Asian American Youth Leadership Conference, which has been ongoing for 29 years. In 2010, the founder of the conference, Paul Duong, selected the Portland Lodge as the baton taker and turned over the conference to the Portland Lodge board. This conference serves as an annual summit and an ongoing mini gatherings aimed at inspiring Asian American youth to value the importance of self-discipline, self-confidence, self-esteem, and the overall rewards of perseverance and achievement. We believe that when youth are provided with resources, empowerment, and opportunities, they can become role models for others in their communities. And this is made possible with the help of over 50 volunteers. And the conference is co-chaired by Helen Ying and Hua Nguyen. And we're hoping to hold the 30th event in 2022. If you would like to learn more about this conference, you can visit the website aayylc.org. And here are some wonderful pictures of previous staff, volunteers, as well as student ambassadors. And this is actually a picture from our last in-person conference, which is the 2019 AAYLC conference. Alongside AAYLC, we also host an ambassador engagement series program in the summer. And we actually had the privilege and opportunity to work with local leaders. And last year with the surge of COVID pandemic and also the events of George Floyd, we worked with local artist Alex Cho to paint an Asian and Black solidarity mural in Portland, Chinatown in August. And here are some of the pictures that were taken at the event and some of our student volunteers. And we also, in the past, we've also had our youth lion dance program under the guidance of Master Stephen Ying. The Lions Dance team has performed in many events in the past, which include celebrations for the Lunar New Year, events at the Classical Chinese Gardens, World Animals at the Portland Zoo, the Gresham Children's Fair, Art Explosion, Asian Pacific American Performing Arts Festival, and the grand opening ceremonies for Portland streetcars. This program, however, retired in 2003. Another focus of the Lodge is education, which takes on the form of the 1882 project celebration since 2011. Since the passage of the House and Senate resolutions of apologies expressing regret for the passage of discriminatory laws against the Chinese in America, including the Chinese Exclusion Act, we have been holding annual 1882 project celebration to educate people about the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, its history, and current issues related to it. Here we have hosted talks at the Oregon Historical Society and film screenings. Another upcoming notable project is veterans recognition. We are honored to play a role in the Chinese American World War II Veterans Recognition Project, and also look forward to holding the Oregon Regional Gold Medal Awards program, honoring veterans from Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Wyoming on November 14th of this year. We are glad to have held virtual medal presentations to 2 living veterans this year. First, with Mr. Fred C. Lee and Mr. Sinclair Yip early of this year. Now, voter registration, civic engagement, education have also been a part of the fabric of the Portland Lodge. With Gloria Lee currently leading this program, collaborating with funders, and cultivating partnerships with organizations from the Asian Health and Service Center, League of Women Voters, Japanese American Citizens League, local libraries, local Asian markets, Lee Family Association, and more. In 2016, we were joined with the Asian American Network of Oregon, APANO, in becoming a vote partner and launched our civic engagement and education programming. Through generous grants from APANO, we have been able to hire contractors, train volunteers, and further develop sustaining programs. Since then, I'm happy to announce that we have registered over 380 new voters, followed up with hundreds more on ballot measure translations, phone banking, get out the vote, and facilitated listening circles. Over 30 native language speakers were recruited and stepped forward for additional training on vote-specific vocabulary. Continued recruitment and development of trained translators is foundational to our efforts to build trust and provide service to voters. This program has inspired both new and established voters to engage in civic education and the democratic process. Next, we have the Oregon Liquor Control Commission server permit classes. So in the early 1980s, Oregon passed a law that owners of bars and servers of alcohol were required to pass a test to be certified for a license. The state did not consider that many of the Asian restaurant owners and servers did not speak English. We had to convince the OLCC to allow us to teach Cantonese and Mandarin classes with no financial support from the state for translation. But after 20 years, the OLCC finally is recognizing the need for this assistance. Initially, we had monthly classes with as many as 12 to 15 students in attendance, but recently it has transitioned to teaching students to obtain their licenses online with computers and tablets. One of our missions is also advocacy. So over 20 years, Betty Jean Lee and Suen Ho and several members were instrumental in bringing the dream of classical Chinese gardens in Chinatown into reality. And among other advocacy work, we're proud to present that in 2017, Portland Lodge was lauded for its efforts in advancing public recognition of the city's earliest Chinese settlers. The Lodge gifted the city with a plaque that commemorates the more than 5,000 Chinese dwellers living and working in Portland's original Chinatown between 1863 and 1900. This plaque was designed by Suen Ho, and it took 2 years of perseverance and raising small donations to memorialize the contributions of past generations of Chinese Americans, stated Betty Jean Lee. Commissioner Dan Saltzman and Portland Borough of Transportation Director Leah Treat dedicated this bronze plaque in the heart of the city's original Chinatown. We also initiated and advocated for a bill, SB 227, and met with lawmakers to ensure that Oregon students learn about the history and incredible contributions of Chinese Americans and communities of colors whose stories seldom make it to the history books. In 2019, we advocated for Mayor Ted Wheeler to issue a proclamation on the 150th anniversary of the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in recognition of the sacrifice and contribution of the Chinese railroad workers. Among all of our work is also community service, and this takes on the form of the toy and food drive. So the first toy and food drive was held on December of 1998, thanks to Fong and June Yi and Keith Lee for first spearheading the project. The donations were received from many individual businesses, such as Walmart, McDonald's, and agencies. And in total, we received $370 in cash donations, which were later spent on food and toys, which were collected and made into food boxes packaged to serve 65 families within the local community. This annual toy and food drive now takes on a much more simplified process. In partnership with the Asian and Health and Service Center, gift cards are purchased with the donated funds from members and friends, and then given to the Asian Health Service Center to distribute to needy families that they serve during the holiday season in December. Among all of our work, we also love to celebrate in the company of all of our members and families and friends. And some of those highlights are the Chinese New Year anniversary celebration. This is an annual event that brings together members, friends, and elected officials to celebrate Chinese New Year and Portland Lodge's many accomplishments, and also to garner support to help fund the youth and civic education programs that continues in the lodge. Alongside the celebration, we also have the Autumn Mooncake Social and Festival. As you can see, friends and families gather to hand make some mooncakes. And then the Winter Social, which is also a social gathering and creates a bonding experience for all those involved. And our last in-person celebration and event was probably the Lunar New Year Dragon Dance Parade and celebration in 2020. And so here are some of the event highlights. On behalf of the board, I would like to thank everyone in celebration of Portland's Centennial celebration for traveling down memory lane with us as we celebrate 100 years of highlights and accomplishments. All of this would not be possible without your active participation and support. And as a board, we hope to see the lodge continue to thrive and continue its many missions and inspire many generations for 100 more years to come. So thank you, everyone. And now I would like to kindly invite everyone to join the next session, which is our featured scholarship winners and AAYLC alumni discussion starting at 1:15. And you can find the Zoom link for that in the chat below. So thank you, everyone, and hope to see everyone there.
And I just very quickly before we leave, I just want to offer a quick toast to Portland Lodge. If you have your coffee cup or your water bottle, I just want to say congratulations to Portland for 100 years of success and dedication to the community and the youth. And may you have another 100 years of success. Thank you again to Portland Lodge. We'll see you at the next session.